أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وأما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا من يرتد منكم عن دينه فسوف يأتي الله بقوم يحبهم ويحبونه أذلة على المؤمنين أعزة على الكافرين يجاهدون في سبيل الله ولا يخافون لومة لائم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله واسع عليم. O you who have faith, should any of you desert his religion, Allah will soon bring a people whom he loves and who love him, who will be humble towards the faithful, stern towards the faithless, waging jihad in the way of Allah, not fearing the blame of any blamer. That is Allah's grace, which He grants to whomever He wishes, and Allah is all bounteous and all knowing. First and most of all, Jami'an, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your great deeds and a'mal, especially your commemoration and mourning for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, Imam al-Sajjad, and Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha, and the rest of Shuhada of Karbala in this month of Muharram and Safar. And may Allah give us the tawfiq of the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussein in this life, and inshallah the benefits of his shafa'ah in this world and the next by reciting aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So it seems like only this part of the majlis they want to go ziyarat, and this part of the majlis they don't want to go ziyarat. So now let's switch that. Those who want to get a PS4 tonight, recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Muhammad. No, it seems like this side they already have the PS4. I don't know what's the next after. Do you have PS5 now? Am I too obsolete? I think. Yes. You have a PC. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. So recite a third salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this bounty and blessing to be able to gather around under the beautiful banner of Sayyid al-Shuhada Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and inshallah be able to learn a couple of different lessons from the movement of Imam al-Hussein, that we can put it into practice, not only to think and contemplate, but inshallah we can see it in action. So when it comes to the movement of Imam al-Hussein, so many different lessons, to the point that scholars they have said that it literally becomes countless if you want to number the different lessons that we can learn from his movement. Because depending on the angle, the aspect that we look at his movement, the lesson may actually change. It reveals itself in different forms, in different aspects. And that's the beauty of the movement of Imam al-Hussein. So if the lessons by itself, it's literally hard to put a number on, we can imagine how much of duty will be upon us as a person and as a group, as a society, as a community, to be able to express our loyalty to Imam al-Hussein. That's what something we constantly recite in Ziyarat of Ashura, on Ziyarat of Warith, for example. Is constantly we tell each other every time we see each other during the month of Muharram. First, we express our condolences. Then, right after that one, we wish and we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِنِّي كُنْتُ مَعَكُمْ فَأَفُوزَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. I wish that I was with you, and how great of a fawz, how great of a virtue, how great of a reward have you gained. I wish that I was gaining of the same reward. So this gaining of the same reward, this accompanyship, this fellowship of Imam al-Hussein, what would it mean in our time of ghaibah, in our time of occultation? How can we make sure that, inshallah, we are on the side of Imam of time? Has anybody thought about that? So if I wear a clothes of a sheikh, if I put an amama, would that make me to be on the side of Imam of time? Not necessarily. If I wear this like Arabic dishtasha, the thobe, right, would that make me to be on the side of Imam of time? Not necessarily. If I own a PS4, a PC, a tablet, and a mashallah, the whole, would that put me on the side of Imam of time? Not necessarily, right? So, what are the criterions that I can learn from Imam al Hussein, from his companions, from his ashab, that I can apply it to my daily life today? What is it that if I'm doing, if I'm following, if I'm like, maintaining it, if I'm practicing it, it is actually going to make me a person who's following the path of Imam al Hussein in relative to Hazrat Sahib al Zaman? What will be those signs? What will be the criterions? What will be the qualities? Number one starts with ma'arifah. Ma'arifah and ma'arifah. Beautiful hadith by Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. ما خلق خلق الله إلا ليعرفوه فإذا عرفوه عبدوه فبعبادته استغنى من عبادته ما سواه. Right? The very first step that every single believer, mu'min or mu'mina, must take, has to take, is the topic of ma'arifatullah. So someone stands up and asks the question from Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, وَمَا مَعْرِفَةُ Imam responds, Ma'rifatullah fi ajbi kulli zamanin, ma'rifatu imamahu alladhi wajib alayhi ta'atuh. The ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equals to what? To ma'rifat of the Imam in every time. The Imam that has this condition, wajib alayhi ta'atuh. The Imam that it becomes obligatory upon those followers to obey his commands and his teachings. So number one becomes ma'rifatu Imam of time. Ma'rifatu Hazrat Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. So what is this ma'rifah? Like, if I go around, I ask the same question. How do I know if I have ma'rifah towards Imam of time? Is it the biography? Is it the history? Is it the stories? Is it, for example, knowing the time of occultation, the year of occultation, the name of the four Nawab of Arba? Like all of these part of ma'rifah? They say that's the first aspect of it, which basically means to go back and review the history, review the information that we have on the books, review the typical biography of the Imam of time, and be able to gain a little bit of a taste of what do we mean when we say Imam of time. But that's only the first level. Why do I say the first level? Go back to the day of Ashura. The ones who stood alongside of Imam al-Hussein and the one who stood in the opponent's side. What was the difference? Were they all unfamiliar with Imam al-Hussein? Or no, they knew Imam al-Hussein by heart, right? Umar al-Sad literally grew up with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. So in terms of ma'arifah, if you take this first level of knowing only the history and biography and the information about Imam al-Hussein, Umar al-Sad already knew Imam al-Hussein. They grew up together. Shamr ibn Zaljoshan, he knew Imam al-Hussein. Ubaidullah, he knew Imam al-Hussein. So many of the commanders of the side of the Yazid, they knew Imam al-Hussein. Even Yazid himself knew Imam al-Hussein. The reason that he sent specifically to collect bay'ah for him. So this first level of ma'arifah would not be sufficient enough. It's needed, but it's a bare minimum. We have to move on from it. Why? If you don't do so, more likely when the test comes, more likely we will be able to fail the test. That means we will actually side in the opposite side of the Imam of time. So ma'arifah, but in-depth ma'arifah. How do we clinch this higher or the next levels of ma'arifah? They said it's only part of it is studying, yes, but the other part is practicing what we know, putting into practice what we know. Be able to do or have that tazkiyah, to have that purification, to have that cleansing of the soul. If we do not have that cleansing of the soul, we would not be able to make that connection with the Imam of time, with someone who is completely pure, right? With someone who's Imam al Ma'sum, with someone who has absolutely not committed a single sin or mistake, nor does he think about committing a sin or mistake. If you want to gain that closeness, if you want to gain that, relation to Imam of time, we have to raise our level of purity as well. So the first step is to make sure to go back and make sure we cleanse our nafs, our soul, so that we can make that connection to the Imam of time. It's not just by reciting the dua of Faraj, by reciting the dua Allahumma kulli waliyaka or Ilahi adhum al bala, right? These are good, mashallah, very good, highly recommended to recite them every day, every Friday, the dua nutbah, and so on and so forth. But these are all as Just again, as we say, to set the ground ready for what? For ourselves to be able to emphasize and concentrate on our own soul. Where am I in line with the mission of Imam of Time? Where am I in line with those who will become the part of the 313 or the next 10,000 or the remaining, army of the Imam of Time, right? So, what will be the ruler? What will be the signs? What will be the set of measurement? Number one, ma'arifah. How much do I really understand about the Imam of Time? How much do I know about his status, his position among the entire creation? One of the very interesting topic is this: where does Imam of Time relies within the creation that we see it? These days, we are so used to the technology and the advancement of technology that we tend to forget about the whole thing of the topic of imamat and wilayat and the Quran and the Nubuwwah and all of this stuff. Why? Because everything's basically done with the tip of our fingertip using our cell phone or computers or tablets and so on and so forth, which is good. Advancement in technology is good, right? At the same time, it cannot push us away from our beliefs. So we have to find the example, as we say, the mistaq of our belief in our current time. So finding ma'arifah of Imam of Time within the technology that we have. We may have talked about this a little bit before, but constantly think about it. How can we reconcile the advancement in technology with the existence of Imam of Time? As everybody knows, Shia school of thought says that Imam of Time is Hayy Hadir, is alive and is present, right? So why do we say qaib? Why do we say occultation? We say yes, ghaiba does not mean it does not exist. It's there. We don't see it. It's functioning. We don't sense the function. That's because of our problem. But he's there. He's doing his functions. He's doing his imamat through what we refer to as walayat of takwini, through what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to him, right? But we tend to make ourselves absent from his presence. With all of the distractions that we have, mashallah, it's not that many. But there are exceptions. There are those individuals, there are those mashallah, believers, strong believers, mu'mineen and mu'minat, who constantly remain loyal to the Imam of their time despite of the situation that they're in. The very first condition they go by is this ma'rifat of Imam. They understand that this whole universe, this whole creation will not stand a chance even for 1 second if there is no Imam at the heart of the creation. Not only understand it in mind, they feel it with their hearts. So when they feel it in their heart, they have the respect for the Imam of Time. A lot of times when we say salam to Imam of Time, we place our hands on the head. But is that only just a sign of respect? Or do I truly feel it in the heart that my entire path of guidance relies on the guidance being provided by Imam of Time? If I don't get that guidance, as if I'm doomed for good, do I sense this or do I just pretend? Pretending it is the first step, but we have to think and contemplate. Remember the topic of the difference between ibadah and ubudiyah, the difference between doing worshipping act and this sensation of servitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the difference between shaitan and the mukhlasin, for example. They both do conduct the act of ibadah. They both prayed. And a lot of mukhlasin, they prayed a lot less than shaitan. Shaitan prayed for how many years? 5,000, 6,000, hereafter years, not the dunyavi years. The dunyavi years is pretty specific, 360 plus days in a year. But in the ukhravi years, 1 day equals to, mashallah, thousands of years in the dunyavi. So imagine how many years and years and years shaitan was doing the act of ibadah, constantly worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the point that he becomes the teacher for the angels. He had a member, right? One of the things that Nabi Rasulullah witnessed in the incident of Mi'raj, in the event of Mi'raj, is when he sees the half-burnt member of Shaitan, where he used to sit on and he used to teach the angels. So think about that very thoroughly. Meaning just going by what we learn from following our elders, our community members, our scholars and leaders is not going to activate the true essence of the iman, the faith. We have to contemplate on it. We have to concentrate on it. We have to focus on the results of this action within our nafs and our soul. So from the prayer, we have to activate the sense of servitude. From du'as and Quran, we have to activate this sense of servitude. That what, like, how do I feel towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do I just say Allahu Akbar and I move on? Or not every time I say Allahu Akbar, my body, my emotion, my status, my mood must change, right? Ala bi dhikrillah tatma'innul qulub. Does this happen to us? Very good example is when we get angry. When we get angry, when we say one zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should become calm. Does that happen? 99% of the time, it does not happen. Why? Because again, the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has just become part of the habits. We constantly recite it, and mashallah, there will be reward and sawab, and inshallah, the heaven of the hereafter. But the whole purpose is something else. And that's what we say the criterions of those who will be accompanying Imam of time, even during the occultation. Why so? Again, it's not that he does not exist. No, he's there. We don't see him. He's functioning. We don't sense it. So if he's there and he's functioning, it becomes upon us to be able to align ourselves with the functions that is doing. Otherwise, who's going to lose? Who's going to lose? Who's going to miss out? Us. Imam is not going to become any less. If the entire world becomes a follower of the Imam of time, or not a single person in the entire world becomes a follower of the Imam of time, would that make him any less of the Imam? No. Imam is always the Imam. Imam is always ma'asum. Imam is always given that divine knowledge. He always has that, what we call, refer to it as a wilayat takwini. That never changes, despite of, like, no matter how, what account of people actually believe in him. So why do we always constantly talk about the number of the followers? That's because we want to make sure that finally the Imam al-Ma'sum is given the circumstances to reveal the true divine justice and divine, like, power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in establishing of that Islamic government in which no madloom will be left, right? When we look at the results of that perfect, if you want to call it, like, utopia, right? There will be no more mazlum, there will be no more poverty, to the point that the topic of sadaqat will be closed when inshallah Imam of time has the zuhur. When he comes, there will be no more poor person that you can help in a form of sadaqah. So that's only for this time, as they talk about, as a result of that true just governance by through the Imam al-Ma'sum. So if I want to accompany the Imam of time, going back to the tragedy of Ashura, learning from the Ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada, the very first thing is how much in-depth knowledge they had about Imam al-Hussein. Now, interesting part, like, do everybody has to go and study books and books and books and books? Answer is no. Look at the Ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Not all of them were scholars of their time, right? So the path of studying and learning, yes, that's good, definitely highly recommended. But at the same time, we have this second path, which means these two can be distinguished: the path of knowledge and the path of ma'rifah. I could be a very, like, a knowledgeable man. At the same time, I may not have a ma'rifah towards the Imam. Umar Assad had a lot of knowledge. He didn't have a ma'rifah towards the Imam, right? Or vice versa. I could be absolutely a no man. No man. Nobody even knows my name. Nobody even looks up to me. Nobody even, like, considers me as perhaps a human being, like a low level, like, let's say, humans of those times, the servants, the ghulams, as they say, right? Nobody would look at them. They would be like the third, fourth, fifth, perhaps class of citizens, if you want to say. But they had the ma'arifah of the Imam. See, ma'arifah of the Imam could be distinguished from the path of the knowledge that we gain. So even on the path of the knowledge, we have to always go back to this point, that the knowledge that I'm gaining, Islamic, non-Islamic, academic, non-academic, how much of this knowledge is actually activating this sense of submitting to the walayat of the Imam of time. So it's like constant measurement. How far am I from the Imam of time? How much do I think about him? How much am I worthy of him? How much am I seeing him whenever I want to make an action in my life? And it's very easy to, like, make that comparison. Every time I pull out my cell phone to continue my game online, is that playing game online, is it really getting me closer to the ashab of Imam of time? Or is it just something to make sure the time passes by and I would not notice how the time goes by? Right? Every time that I open a book that I'm studying it, how should I be studying this book to make me part of the companions of Imam of time? To what extent? How perfection, like how like to what extent of completion? Or should I just read it through and make sure I pass the test so that I will graduate to the next grade? Is it the graduation that makes us be part of the companions of Imam of time? Or is it the quality of the graduation that changes or distinguishes the people from one another? You see, the duty changes. It's not only to think, okay, I'm going to finish high school, I'm going to go to college, then inshallah I'll get a grade and I will try to look for jobs. Whatever job I get, whatever internship I get, I just try to move on, move on, move on, move on. Why? Because I have this dream, a dream house, a dream car, a dream wife, a dream family, and I want to go and see the entire world. That has nothing to do with being along the line of the companions of Imam of time. All of that could be achieved. Don't get me wrong. It's not to say put everything aside. No, actually, we have to go for it. We have to thrive for it. We have to strive for it. But at the same time, we have to always keep that connection that, hey, there is a purpose for doing all of this stuff. It's not for the sake of those stuff by itself. No, it's for the sake of me working on the qualities that I have to be able to serve when it's needed. And when is needed, literally on every day, every hour, every minute of our life, if the service is needed, it has different forms. A lot of us, we wait for the time of zuhur. We say, inshallah, if Imam of time comes, if he does the public call, then inshallah, all will be there to defend the Imam of time at any given cost. Is that the only duty that we have? To postpone everything for the time of zuhur, inshallah? There is nothing else we have to do during the time of occultation? If that's the case, we're no different than the ones who absolutely did not do anything when Imam al Hussein was moving, right? They said, oh, Imam al Hussein, mashallah, he has all of the angels on his side. He has all of the forces that he wants. He's going to go and he's going to win, no problem. We'll just sit back and relax. Or the Bani Israel, when they told Nabi Musa, you go and fight with your God, and whenever you gain victory, we'll be happy to come and live in the city. We'll flourish the city for you, right? Postponing everything, constantly saying, okay, I have no responsibility, constantly saying, it's not for me, it's for others, constantly saying, well, Imam has not come yet, so I have no responsibility. No, that's not the way it is. It's actually the exact opposite. Again, look at the line of the imamat, especially after Imam al-Rida, from the time of Imam al-Jawad and continue until the occultation, as if this concept of ghiba, this concept of occultation, it starts to get embedded gradually and gradually and gradually. So the imams become distant from the public, little by little, little by little, little by little. Why so? Now the companions and the people are getting used to accessing the imam indirectly. Because of what? Because this ma'rifah of the imam keeps on lacking, keeps on lacking. You'll be surprised. All of these topics that we have about the Ma'rifat al-Imam, it did not really exist at that time. There were some individuals, yes, but in generality, when we speak of, a lot of people had no idea what Imam means. They would say Imam, or the person who leads the prayer. Imam who has the power. Imam who gives the fatwa. Imam who does whatever he wants, right? And we just have to follow him, even if they do an act of oppression. Gradually, this has been changed, and the truth about Imamah has been revealing itself gradually, to the point that we say at the end times, literally every single person, like believer, not believer, they start realizing that there must be another source in order to provide that true sense of justice. So that's when they start feeling and they start calling towards the Imam of time despite of their belief. It's not only Muslimin and Muslimat and Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, no, even non-Muslims. And we can kind of see and feel the momentum already. So a lot of times we go back to our communities and we say, mashallah, so many problems. So again, comparison within our time and the time of Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salatu wassalam. A lot of times we go back and forth between different problems, different questions, different view of thought, different school of thought. He said this, that said this, he said this, and always trying to make something here. But when you look at it from an outside, hey, what's the population around the world? 6 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion? What's the last one? I forgot the stats. 7 billion, alhamdulillah. Any more? Going once, twice? 7 billion people. What percentage of these 7 billion people are actually believers? What percentage? 12%? MashaAllah. So take Christianity, take Judaism, take Islam, put them all combined together, right? What's the population? Minus 7 billion. Take the percentage. Come on, the school started, right? So you guys should be good in math. What's the percentage? 50? I'll give you 50, right? Let's say 50% of the people, the entire population are believers. What about the remaining 50%? We don't have any responsibility towards them. We only have fight like to fight among each other. The Shia within the Shia, then Shia and Sunni, then Muslim against Christianity, Islam against the Judaism, and constant. What about the other 50% who do not believe in any form of God? They refer to themselves as atheists, whatever, non-believers, non-practicing, anything you want to label. The label is always there. Can we just focus on them? At least it would be a 50. No, we cannot. Why not? It's actually very easy to focus on them because now you have the sources to combine. You can actually learn from the experience from it's not only one school of thought. In reality, when it comes to this dialogue between non-Muslims, our brothers in Ahl Sunnah, they have way extensive experience. When it comes to school of thought of the Shia, we don't have that much because we've been always the minority. So we've always had to have these conflicts between each other. But when will be the time for us to grow out of this conflict? To see that, hey, there are so many people around the world that they have absolutely no sense about a creator, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On that one, we can have a common ground. We can talk about it. We can use each other's experience. The very simple example, how many people are in this room? I don't know, 20 maybe? The years of education, Islamic education that we have combined. You can start in one corner and add up the numbers, right? How many years and years and years of Islamic education we have right now present in this room? What do we use it for? That comes the question. Where do we aim it towards? How can we make that enlightenment towards the ones who absolutely have no idea about religion, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about resurrection, about ma'ad, about nabuwwah, about imamat, about justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's very likelihood. What's the reason that we actually establish Islamic school? Because we say when you go to that public, now you get, tempted, you get all influenced by the people around you. How come we cannot influence the ones who are around us? Do we always have to fight within ourselves? So one of the signs of those who are actually companions of the Imam of time is this fact that they have such a strong belief that none of these shubahat and these questions on the side will actually change their status. They are fixed and focused on the mission, on the goal, objective that they have. That objective is very clear. Provide guidance. If I know something about my religion, the least I can do is to provide the very same level of knowledge and ma'arifah to the people that I know. Right? Perhaps my neighbors, perhaps classmates, perhaps co-workers. Little by little. Not to say from day one you're just going to start. No, little by little. And most of them, they already they get exposed to these teachings by the way we live, by the way we behave. So we have to be example. We have to be that role model in every aspect. Our center should be a role model, right? When they go by, they would sense the difference, not the opposite. As they go by, they should not be seeing a lot of, for example, trashes outside. I keep on telling mashallah brother about that one, but of course there are some, conditions, right? And nizafatu min al-iman, something simple. As they go by, they should sense that okay, there is a different ideology here. That and nizafatu min al-iman, it won't different if I'm a Shia or Sunni. It's the same thing, right? Nabi Rasulullah at that time, constantly or most of the time, he used to wear white clothes. Think about it. At that time, there was no bleach, there was no Clorox, there was no sense of using this chemical whitening stuff and an automatic washing machine. So how are they washing the clothes at that time? And in a stage where mashallah, it's all dust and the winds and it becomes dirty so fast. So how would he keep it clean? They have it that they literally would actually put the thobe in a hot water, constantly boiling it to make sure the color becomes clean. And he would become the example. It's not like his clothing by the act of karama would be clean. It's not like all the money and stuff will come to him by the acts of karama. That's not always the way. We tend to like forget about this. Okay, inshallah, Imam of time comes, he moves, or like he moves his hand and we all get rich and we all get successful. That's not the way. Actually, the opposite. When Imam comes, inshallah, every single one of us have to double, triple, quadruple the amount of work that we do for the sake of Islam. Because finally, we get that awakening call that, hey, we're way far behind. At least half of the population in the world have absolutely no idea about God, about Creator. What was the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent 124,000 prophets and like Nabi and Anbiya? 124,000. These are the best of the people, right? If I want to make sure I align with the companions of Imam of time, I can learn something from this 124,000, like, Anbiya. What was their common message? From Nabi Adam all the way to Nabi Rasulullah. The same one message. What was that message? Tawheed. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. It was the same thing, then it branched up, because if you look at it thoroughly, from the same topic of Tawheed, you can derive Nubuwwah. From Nubuwwah, you can drive Imamat. From Imamat, you can drive justice. And then from justice, you can drive resurrection. Everything goes back to the Tawheed, monotheism. قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ تُفْلِحُوا. One simple hadith. Say La ilaha illallah, be prosperous. So is that means I keep on saying La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, I will be prosperous? No, it means to contemplate what this La ilaha illallah means. To spread the words of what La ilaha illallah means, right? To try to at least educate the ones who have absolutely no idea about this, but gradually, inshallah. So that's one of the, again, qualities of those who, inshallah, will line with the ashab of Hazrat Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, inshallah. Ma'arifah, number one. Number two, conveying what we already know from the religion. That becomes my duty, according to the level that I have. So constant, what do we drive from the second one? Constant seekness for knowledge, one, and constant thinking and contemplating, how can I convey the message? By the actions, of course, in the form of individual, family, society, community, and inshallah further. So that's the second one. The third one, it says that, like, the ashab of Hazrat Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, they constantly will be tested and tested and tested and tested and tested again. This whole concept of living in the end times, all the ahadith that you look up to, it may sound scary, but there is a reason for all of this testing. In a sense, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to reveal what kind of a jewel this ashab of Hazrat Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman have. So constantly provides different testing for them. It becomes difficult, yes, but we have to be ready for it. It's not just to say, okay, the minute I say, okay, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Shia, I'm a 12 Imami, that's it. Everything I ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be provided for me instantly, right? No, that's not the way. It's actually the opposite, complete opposite. I may have read this story that Nabi Rasulullah goes to the house of one of the ashab as they're invited for, like, for the food. So he notices that there is this egg on the side of a shelf. The egg rolls down and falls on the ground, but it doesn't break. Wow, mashallah. Nabi Rasulullah becomes shocked by seeing this egg falling down from a shelf on the ground, not breaking. That, like, owner, the host, he says, oh, don't be surprised. In this house, nothing gets broken. No matter how hard we throw it, no matter how hard the kids play on, nothing gets broken. Nabi Rasulullah stands up, leaves the house. What does he say? He says, there is no mercy in this house. This house is deprived from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do we think? We think the opposite, right? All of this is set for testing purposes. And it's very thorough. Another incident, the companion, the Sahabi, comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen and he's about to sit down on a chair. The minute he sits down, the chair breaks, he hits the ground, he hits his forehead on the side of the chair, blood starts, like, coming out from his forehead. So Amir al-Mu'mineen, like, he uses, like, the saliva of his mouth, he runs over the wound of his forehead, the bleeding stops. Then as he's helping the Sahaba to, like, to get up, he tells him, do you know why this happened to you? He says, oh, I don't know. This is because when you were about to sit down, you forgot to say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Something as simple as this. It's very thorough, very detailed. So how am I supposed to become that thorough within my actions if I'm constantly, focused on distractions? Distractions, distractions, distractions. That's the number one problem that every single one of us face, and it becomes more and more and more and more and more and more accessible, as we say. Distractions, distractions, distractions. So what should we do to focus? What do we do when we have an exam tomorrow? Do we still play game on the cell phone when we have an exam tomorrow? Or no, the parents take away the cell phones, take away the tablets, make sure they give us that quality time to focus on the book. So the very same thing has to be done on the actions that we do. They refer to it as muraqabah. But that becomes voluntarily. First step is I need to want this muraqabah. If I don't want it, no matter how much they force me, it's going to backfire. Right? And where this wanting comes from, that topic of ma'arifah. If I don't have ma'arifah towards the imam, I will not be asking for this muraqabah. Hence, the distance between me and my imam will become more and more and more and more over time, to the point that everything just becomes a program. Like, hey, this is just another program. I'll go there, I see other brothers and sisters, and that's it. I have a dinner, and khalas. And you'll be surprised. Sometimes when we talk to some of the brothers, that's what they say. It's like, I come to the majlis of Imam al-Hussein, but for what? This for what purpose? This for what? When they ask this one, it's like they have absolutely no idea what's going on in the majlis of Imam al-Hussein. I'll even make it more challenging. Let's say you attend the majlis in an Urdu language. Nobody here speaks Urdu, right? You attend the majlis in a Farsi language, in a Spanish, in I don't know, in Turkish language, right? You don't understand a single word of what the speaker is talking about, but you being in the majlis of Imam al-Hussein, why? Because you make the intention. What was the intention? I am going to the majlis of Imam al-Hussein qurbatan ilallah. This intention by itself will make the entire majlis beneficial for you, whether we understand it or not. See, it's that sense of focus on Abu Abdullah al-Hussein that's driving us. So I always have to go back to that intention, clarify that intention, make that intention more sincere. That's when we see the results. It's not about me of listing all of the sawab and the rewards and me be able to understand why do we say in the riwayah that even if you cannot read the Quran, open the Quran and look at it. Try to explain that one in today's language. Open the Quran and look at it verse by verse. I cannot read it, I cannot understand it, just look at it. That looking at the Quran will have the nur within your heart. How is that working? The intention, right? There is a recommendation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? This is what we refer to as the wilayat takwini. There is embedded within the rules of the universe, and we just align ourselves with it. Everything we have in religion, whether it's the sunnah or whether it's the ahkam, the fiqh rulings, or the culture of Islam, all of it is trying to make us aligned with this takwini aspect. And we don't know it because, hey, we're not aware of it. We're living in the alam al-zahir. We're living in the dunya, as they refer to as alam al-ghurur. Allahumma arzuqni tajafi an dar al-ghurur. Oh, Allah give us the tawfiq to move away from this dar al-ghurur. The dar in which constantly is deceitful, is constantly making fool out of us, right? Wal inabata ila dar al-khulud. And constantly going back towards the dar, towards the realm, which will be for forever, for the realities, right? وَالْإِسْتِعْدَادَ لِلْمَوْتِ قَبْلَ حُصُولِ الْفَوْتِ. And getting ready, getting prepared for this departure from the Dar al-Ghurur to Ila Dar al-Khulud, right? Which we refer to it as maut, transportation. Getting ready before when that time comes. Getting ready before that inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un is set, right? Inshallah. One of the best path, again, going back and focusing on the Ahlul Bayt, especially Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salatu wassalam. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah wa ala al-arwah allati halat bifanaik. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Let's go to the land of Karbala. Let's go to the Bain al-Haramain. There's always this question, which shrine should I go first? The shrine of Hazrat Abbas or the shrine of Hazrat Abu Abdullah? Which way, which bab, which gateway to use? Always the question, as if like there is a difference. Obviously there would be, but when it comes to choosing between the two of the brothers, Hazrat Abbas on one side, Imam al-Hussein on the other side. Think about it as if you have entered the heaven itself and all you have is these options in front of you. Go to the ziyarat of Ashab, go to the ziyarat of Hazrat Ali Akbar, go to the ziyarat of Hazrat Qasim, go to ziyarat of Hazrat Abbas, no difference. Or go for the champion of the champions, ziyarat of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. All of them is laid down in front of us. But now we look at in the form of ziyarah. Go back on the day, the 10th of Muharram, on the day of Ashura, when everything was done and said, and the order for looting of the Khiyam and the Khaymegah was given. So they start attacking and charging towards the Khaymegah and the tents of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. The people who were thirsty for the material bounties and all they could see will be the pieces of jewelries and whatever they could get from these little women and children, and they start attacking and charging towards the Khaymegah of Abu Abdullah. So Sayyida Zainab looks at Imam al-Sajjad. Imam al-Sajjad tells them, Alaykunna bil farar, run as fast as you can to any direction that you can. But what's the direction they have? On the back side, there is a trench with the fire. They cannot run backward. On the forward, there is the army who is attacking them. They cannot run forward. Which direction can they take? So they say this army started chasing every single one of these women and children, aiming to get whatever they can from them, to the side that to the point that they start pulling on earrings without opening them up, ripping it from the ears of these little kids, or removing the bracelets and anklets from their hands and arms while they're fighting one another, to the point that Fatima bint al-Hussein says, this guy was going after the anklet of my foot and he was crying while doing it. I asked him, why are you crying? He said, because I feel bad about this. So I told him, so don't do it. He says, I cannot. If I don't take it, someone else will beat me into it. So I have to be fast about it. Just part of the musibah. Then Bibi Sukaina says, I was looking around seeing all of these soldiers running after women and children. Then I noticed one who's looking at me directly in the eye. So I got scared. I start running. The next thing I know, I start hitting this sensation of burn on my ear. And the next thing I know, I faint out on the plains of Karbala. I open my eyes. Sayyida Zainab, my aunt, has come to my rescue. She's patting me on the head and she's saying me, come back through. Oh, Sukaina, come back through. I sense that I came back through and I sense that my ear is burning. I touched my ear. There was no more pieces of ear left on the side of my face. As if that's not enough, they start attacking the remaining of Khaymegah. They saw Imam al-Sajjad laying there as if he's about to die. They even pulled out the rug that Imam al-Sajjad was laying underneath him. They were about to kill the last remaining of the Imam. But Sayyida Zainab goes up to the rescue and she calls out Umar Asad. He says, haven't you done enough to this family? Umar Asad says that's enough and he calls back the soldiers. As they come back, that Mal'oon calls out for volunteers. Volunteers for what, oh Omar Assad? I need volunteers to get on their horses. I need volunteers to get on their horses. Put on the neo shoe horses on the horses, and I want them to start running back and forth on the Godal of Qatlaga, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. They say at least 12 men or 10 men became volunteer. They got on the horses. They start going back and forth until when? Until the sound of breakage of the bones of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and the rest of the Shuhada in the Godal of Qatlaga was being heard from long distance. Ya Allah, and Imam al-Sajjad, Sayyida Zainab, Kulsum, Zainab, Salamullah, Sukaina, Ruqay, all of them are witnessing this of their eyes, and they cannot even say one word, they cannot even cry, they cannot even shout, because the minute they cry, they will get a slap on the face, just as a 3-year-old of Abu Abdullah start talking about this in the Kharaba of Sham, when she says, oh Baba, have you noticed my face? Have you noticed how much bruise I have on my body? Have you seen the blisters on my feet? Oh, Baba, these guys, every time I wanted to cry, they would constantly hit me with the side of a spear. They would constantly slash me on the side of the face or the body. Oh, Baba, how come you left us alone? Oh, Baba, who's going to take care of the caravan now? Oh, Baba Jan, who's going to take care of the orphans now? Oh, Baba Jan, no one let me see who has done this to your face. Oh, Baba, who has done this to your neck? Oh, Baba, who has cut off the veins of your neck? Oh, Imam al-Hussein. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم العز الأجل الأكرم إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله. اللهم عجل وليك الفرج والعافية والنصر واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره وشيعته. اللهم ارحم أمواتنا واشف أمراضنا واجعل عاقبة الأمور خيرا. O Allah, will ask you on the right of Imam al-Hussein to hasten the appearance of Imam of time and to give every single one of us the tawfiq and blessing to be part of his true companions. O Allah, will ask you to provide forgiveness upon all of us and to provide complete shifa for all of those who have come down with sicknesses. O Allah, will ask you for mercy and maghfirah upon the marhumin and marhumat. O Allah, will ask you to accept this majlis on your mercy and on your behalf and extend the sawab and rewards of this majlis to the soul of maraji ulama, shuhada and marhumin and marhumat. O Allah, will ask you to give us the tawfiq of the ziyarat of Abu Abdullah in this life and the benefits of the shafa of the Ahlul Bayt in this world and the next. O Allah, place our life the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad and our death the death of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين بن علي يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين أيها الزين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي أيها الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي أيها العسكري. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا إمامنا يا إمام الإنس والجان يا صاحب العصر والزمان. العجل 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 عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك واجعلنا جميعا من أخس عوانك وشيعتك ومحبيك جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل الساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.